Everyone knows the Greek legend of the monstrous Medusa, slain by the hero Perseus. What everyone doesn't know is Medusa is not the villain of this story. Neither is Perseus. In this video, we're going to show who the real monsters are. Our most famous version of the story of Medusa comes from the Roman poet Ovid. Since he was riffing on a Greek legend, we'll use the Greek names for the players involved. Medusa, along with her Gorgon sisters Theno and Euryale, were the daughters of the primordial sea gods Phorcus and Ceto, noted for producing monsters. However, something must have gone wrong with Medusa because, unlike her sisters, Medusa was born a beautiful mortal girl. She only got more lovely as she grew up. Perhaps weary of all the attention she was getting, or perhaps out of natural piety, Medusa took a vow of chastity and became a priestess in the temple of the goddess Athena. Those who saw her there said her beauty rivaled that of the goddess herself, which wasn't really fair since very few of them had actually seen the goddess except as a statue. Regardless, and as you can imagine, that opinion didn't sit very well with the goddess. Since the Greek gods were prey to all the human emotions and the goddess of wisdom was no exception, Athena grew jealous. However, as Medusa rigorously observed her vow of chastity and brought only honor to her temple, Athena just seethed a bit and left Medusa alone. So matters might have remained until time and Medusa's mortality solved the problem. However, being the daughter of a pair of sea deities, Medusa had an affinity for the ocean, and her favorite pastime was to take long walks on the beach near the temple. One unfortunate day, the sea god Poseidon got a glimpse of her there and was smitten. He began to court her immediately, but Medusa wasn't interested. As one of the primary gods of the Greek pantheon, Poseidon was used to getting what he wanted, and he wasn't familiar with this word no and didn't care much for it. He decided to ignore the word and force himself on Medusa. She fled to what she believed to be the sanctuary of the Temple of Athena, but Poseidon simply followed Medusa there, caught her, and had his way with her against her will in the temple itself. So far as Athena was concerned, this was both blasphemy and sacrilege of the highest order, and the punishment was immediate and severe. So what punishment did Poseidon receive? What do you think? That's right, absolutely nothing. Athena turned her full wrath on poor Medusa. She was cursed to share the nature of her two sisters and become a true Gorgon, with snakes for hair and a visage so hideous it would turn anyone who saw it to solid stone. Medusa fled to join her sisters in a cave in the north, far away from anyone. If Medusa thought, at the very least, her isolation would bring her peace, she was wrong. Soon heroes from far and near, mostly far, were seeking out her cave to destroy her. She developed both a stunning collection of garden statuary and a deep distrust and hatred for humankind. Here's where the hero Perseus enters the story. Polydectes, king of Seriphos, had tasked Perseus to bring him the head of the monstrous Medusa. It wasn't that Polydectes really wanted Medusa's head. What he wanted was for Medusa to petrify Perseus and add him to her statuary collection. It seemed that Polydectes wanted to marry Perseus's mother, Danae, and Perseus was against this. The point of the king's quest was to remove Perseus as an obstacle and use Medusa to do it. One can wonder why Perseus didn't just tell Polydectes to sod off, but that wasn't the way these things were done. Perseus accepted the challenge. Many before him had failed at this very task, but Perseus had an ace up his sleeve. He may have been mortal, but his father was Zeus, who had visited his mother in the form of a shower of gold when she was locked in a tower in an attempt to prevent her from getting pregnant. Long story, but the short version is Danae's father had heard a prophecy that his daughter's son was destined to off him, which eventually happened. Nevertheless, as a son of Zeus, the gods were inclined to aid Perseus in his quest. Hermes gave him a pair of winged sandals to make his journey easier. Hephaestus provided a sword that would cut almost anything. Hades loaned him a helmet that rendered him invisible. Then there was Athena. As the goddess of wisdom and war, it was her purview to help warriors achieve a heroic destiny, which may have factored into her decision. but just as likely she still had it in for Medusa for not being able to fight off Poseidon, and being too pretty besides. Regardless of her reasons, Athena loaned Perseus a mirrored shield so he would never have to look at Medusa directly. So, armed and prepared, he set out on his mission. Perseus, using his winged sandals, arrived safely at the cave Medusa shared with her immortal sisters. In some versions of the legend, Perseus found Medusa napping and simply crept up on her and cut her head off while she was sleeping. Those versions aren't particularly heroic. We'll stick to the version where there's a fierce battle, but using the gifts of the gods, and particularly Athena's mirrored shield, Perseus was able to avoid getting petrified long enough to cut off Medusa's head and flee with his prize. Upon returning home, he showed the head to Polydectes, who immediately turned to stone, which made him one of the very few players in this legend who actually got what they deserved. As for Perseus, he kept Medusa's head long enough to perform a few more heroic deeds, such as rescuing the damsel Andromeda, who was about to be eaten as a sacrifice to a sea monster. After this, Perseus gave Medusa's head to Athena, who incorporated it into her shield to add its power to her own. So, was Medusa really the monster legend says she was? She was dangerous, certainly, but only because one god did her an injustice and the goddess she loyally worshipped blamed her for letting it happen. There's a pair of monsters in this legend beyond a doubt, but neither one was Medusa.